We're talking about all of this and much more with one of the sharpest geopolitical minds in America today, Dr. Rod Martin. And it all starts now. Fox Business calls him a tech guru. Britain's Guardian describes him as a philosopher capitalist, and the Blaze TV has dubbed him one of America's leading public intellectuals. Dr. Rod D. Martin is a visionary thinker and conservative leader and a must-follow on X, where every day he's breaking down the seismic geopolitical shifts we're seeing under President Trump. Dr. Martin is also the founder and CEO of Martin Capital, and he joins us now. Rod, great to see you. And I think a great place to start is with making America safe again. President Trump announced yesterday that he will take control, the federal government will take control of the D.C. Metropolitan Police Force to crack down on the crime wave plaguing our nation's capital. Rod, how big is this? It's one thing to take control in D.C., which is much needed, but what about Chicago, L.A., Philly, New York City, other crime-ridden cities run by Democrats? Could we see this new policy by President Trump spread?
Well, obviously, in the District of Columbia, you have constitutional authority for the federal government to run the place. They passed the Home Rule Act a number of years ago, and so the city largely runs itself. But that isn't necessary. The federal government has every right to run every aspect of the district if it chooses to. And the president doesn't have that power unfettered, but he does in combination with Congress. The crime rate's absolutely unbelievable. It's just beyond excessive. And the people who should be the most concerned about that are the people who purport to stand for the residents of the city. The Democrat government in Washington should care more about the crime rate. It affects their people more than anybody. And yet they let it grow year after year. Now, beyond D.C., obviously the president doesn't have as great of powers, but he does have the ability to surge federal law enforcement into some of those places and really make a meaningful difference. And I think the net on this is that the Democrats get a real black eye for their complete failure to run every major metropolitan area in this country. They are losing a lot of minority votes throughout the United States. This could push it further.
Yeah. Rod, what are some of the reasons? These Democrat cities are obviously crime-ridden messes. What are some of the reasons? What are some of their governing policies that are such spectacular failures in places like New York and L.A. and Philadelphia?
Well, we used to have complicated discussions about that, but anymore, it's just ridiculous. These days, you've got cities that have eliminated cash bail. So people get arrested and they're immediately out and offending again. You have, in California, they actually made it illegal for anybody to prosecute a shoplifter who took less than, I think it was $950 of stuff. Democrats have lost their minds on this stuff. Their defund the police movement took real root within their own mindsets, if not in all of the country. And they simply can't be trusted to keep Americans safe.
No, it's insane. And in the cities, good is called evil and evil is called good in many Democrat-run American cities, sadly. Hey, President Trump said he expects to get D.C. under control pretty quickly. He compared it to the incredible turnaround at our southern border. Rod, talk more about that. Just incredible what's been accomplished there. And yet, Democrats are saying, and Beto O'Rourke, remember him rearing his head again this week, saying that they want to basically mass legalize the millions of illegal aliens that came to the United States under Joe Biden. Why is that so dangerous? And look, at a time when we've never seen a more secure southern border, that's great, but there are still ulterior motives among the left.
Well, and there's no guarantee that we win the next election or the election after that. So we're dealing with an ideology that literally wants to remake America, and they're doing it in multiple dimensions. So you have multiple municipalities, such as San Francisco, that have legalized illegal alien voting, and they say, well, that's only for our city elections. Well, no, it's not. They're in the ballot box. They're going to vote on the other races, obviously. And California has made it illegal to check a voter ID. So if these people are registered to vote, why wouldn't they come vote? And who's going to even tell them that they're not supposed to? Because California will not. But you see this in other dimensions as well. First of all, the Biden administration just dropping the court dates for 700,000 people who are in the country illegally. They can't get deported if they never actually are ruled to be illegal. And so, Biden just made sure that they wouldn't be. We have all of these other backdoor amnesty policies, and worse than that, just the surge of illegals into states like California and New York for the purpose of increasing their population count in the census, with the result that California, New York, and other blue states like Illinois get more electoral votes and more House seats than they're entitled to. And it's just wicked all around. It's utterly corrupt. Trump's taken a stab at stopping it. We'll see if he's successful.
Yeah, it truly is wicked. That is the appropriate word to use, Rod. And it is a massive turnaround, thank God, under President Trump in just 7 months. But as you said, it's going to be a long road here, a lot to clean up, needless to say. Speaking of President Trump and the border, what about that border wall? Remember President Trump's border wall? What's the latest there? And what's the latest on child mutilation? That's the only way to call it, folks. It is child mutilation. Some good things happening there, some major reversals. We'll discuss with Rod Martin after the break. Stick around. Welcome back to Stakelbeck Tonight. We're talking to Dr. Rod Martin, founder and CEO of Martin Capital. Folks, be sure to follow him on X. He has incredible geopolitical breakdowns there every single day. And something you've been writing about, Rod, is maybe a topic people haven't thought about as of late, the border wall. We heard so much about it during President Trump's first term. The Biden administration pretty much tried to kill the wall, but the wall is back, right? This is an amazing and encouraging story you've been writing about on X. Tell us more about it.
Well, it's getting finished. And, we had some conservative critics of the president in the first 60 days of his first term. He hasn't built the wall yet. It's like, well, you go try to build a wall for 2,000 miles in 2 months. I mean, that's just absurd. But he's getting it done. And as you know, Joe Biden actually auctioned off, huge segments of the wall that were to be constructed. And the Trump administration just reversed that and got that material back. So that's saving Americans potentially billions of dollars. It really is a big deal. But in the meantime, they've done other very positive things, such as federalizing the Roosevelt Reservation, which is the very thin strip along the border from El Paso to San Diego that was actually federalized under Woodrow Wilson. They've turned that into a military base. And so if you cross over it, you're in danger of the military dealing with you in the manner that they would if you trespassed at Fort Bliss or somewhere. And they've just done countless things that have been incredibly effective. Border crossings are down to an all-time low, and we're just stemming the problem. It's not a problem now. Now, will it be a problem in 4 years? Depends on who you vote for. But Donald Trump has shut the border, and now the issue is deporting the people who came for 4 years.
Yeah, no doubt, and putting pressure on these cartels as well. It's just been such a stunning turnaround. But as you said, 4 years could be different, Rod. We have a golden opportunity here in America. We cannot squander it as Americans, as the body of Christ as well. Hey, you mentioned the word wicked during the first block before the commercial, and I think one of the most wicked strategies or policies of the Biden-Harris administration was the just elevation of child mutilation, these sex change surgeries for minors. Well, President Trump is hitting back against that in a major way and holding hospitals accountable. You've written about this. Tell us more about that. These hospitals, all of a sudden, there's a lot more stakes here for them, and they're backing down on these child mutilations.
Yeah, the president has been phenomenal on this, and you're exactly right to call it that. It is child mutilation. Whether it's chemical castration or physical, makes no difference. If I choose to go do something like that, I'm an idiot and I deserve what I get, but I'm an adult and I get to choose that. A child does not. And we're talking about very young children in many cases. We're talking about kids that, today they may say maybe it's a little boy and he says he's a little girl. Tomorrow he may say he's a fire truck or a dog. So we have to protect minors up to and including 17-year-olds, absolutely, but certainly 7-year-olds and 7-month-olds. And the president's doing that. This latest move to block federal funding to any hospital who participates in this barbarianism is just really welcome, really timely. We needed this a long time ago. I don't understand how this isn't common sense. And it tells you how unbelievably out of touch and far afield from where most Americans are, the Democrats have become.
Yeah, it is a great evil, no doubt. But it seems, Rod, that we're seeing a shift away from that, God willing. The gender madness, obviously, DEI out the window. Do you sense a cultural shift? President Trump's only been back in office for about 7 months, but do you already sense a cultural shift back to sanity and away from the woke madness?
There clearly is. But I would add to that you get that with a new president quite frequently. There was a meaningful difference in the country after Obama won. There was a meaningful difference in the country after Reagan won. And it was just palpable and people could feel it and they talked about it. And elections matter more than we realize. Our leaders shape our culture to a degree that is frequently ignored or just not realized. And Christians in particular are prone to believing that politics is downstream of culture. Well, the entire Marxist idea of politics is that it defines culture. So we're in this constant tension between their attempt to dominate every manner of existence and every aspect of life politically versus what is clearly a Christian view that it shouldn't be that way, that politics shouldn't define absolutely everything. Nevertheless, we live in a world where it does define much, and we have to take it seriously.
Yeah, for the left, it is literally life or death, no doubt. And for us, it's becoming that way as well, as they assault our values of faith, family, and freedom, the Judeo-Christian values that built this nation. Speaking of which, after the break, look, we're talking about positive changes here at home. What about abroad? Is America the leader of the free world once again? What about what's happening in Russia, in Israel? Much more with Dr. Rod Martin after the break. A great geopolitical breakdown next. Welcome back to Stakelbeck Tonight. We're talking to Dr. Rod Martin, founder and CEO of Martin Capital. Be sure to follow him on X, where he's giving great breakdowns of breaking news around the world, including, look, a pretty interesting agreement, needless to say, struck last Friday at the White House between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Now, a lot of people watching might say, I can't identify those two countries on the map, and yet, Rod, this was a very important and historic peace treaty brokered by President Trump. Tell us why it was great, not just for Armenia and Azerbaijan, but for the United States.
It's a really big deal, and it's part of a much bigger picture. We have been told since Donald Trump first ran that he was going to destroy NATO and he's going to be an isolationist and he's going to pull us out of the world, and the world will have to adjust to a world without America. And all of that is ludicrous. That's never been his purpose. His purpose has always been to demand that our allies actually be partners and not dependents, that they actually build real militaries and don't just freeload on us. And he is very assertive around the world. He just doesn't want to commit troops in the way that the neocons did for decades. He's got a very Reagan-esque mindset on this, and we see that very clearly in Armenia. Armenia has been a Russian satellite for all practical purposes since the fall of the Soviet Union, when it actually was part of the USSR. And it's sitting there, right there in the neighborhood with Georgia, with Turkey, and with Azerbaijan. They're sitting on a lot of oil. They're in a crucial transport corridor that could get you around Iran and Russia. And that's exactly what the president did. He went and said, look, you guys have been fighting for most of 40 years. Let's end all that. let's all be friends. We're going to create a transport corridor from Baku into Turkey and to the Black Sea, and we're going to make you all rich. And America's going to come in and invest. And so it's very much part of this whole Trump doctrine we saw enunciated so well in the Middle East trip, commerce, not chaos. And in the process, he's also detaching a key Russian ally in an area that is extremely important militarily to Russia. That sets up the Alaska meeting. Putin knows that Trump's going to go after things that Putin can't afford to lose. He needs to make peace.
Yeah, Putin is kind of limping into that meeting because of peace through strength. It really works, Rod, as you mentioned, and so does leverage and not being afraid to use it. Hey, speaking of the Middle East, which you just mentioned, Israel, Gaza, President Trump backing Bibi Netanyahu, saying, look, finish the job. You can't leave Hamas Nazis in control in Gaza. What's your take on these narratives we've been hearing about Israel supposedly forcing starvation upon the innocent people of Gaza, et cetera? What's been your take on that and President Trump's posture with Gaza?
No, it's just absurd. I mean, I've heard British leaders talking about, how Israel isn't sending enough aid into Gaza. Well, first of all, if they weren't, everybody in Gaza would be dead by now. This war's been going on for a while. They're clearly eating. But second, when did Britain send food aid to Nazi Germany? I mean, that never happened. That's absurd. So, the standards that Israel's held to are simply ahistorical, nonsensical. They are in a war. They didn't start the war. They did everything they could to avoid the war. And now they're in a war, and they're going to fight it to conclusion. And the bottom line you can't ever miss is that we would not have actually won World War II if the Nazi regime had still been in power in Berlin. We would not have actually won World War II if Tojo's regime was still in power in Tokyo. They had to actually be removed because they were a plague upon the earth. And that's what Hamas is. Could there be a two-state solution? I really think that's a bad idea. I think a one-state solution makes more sense, but they can sort it out. What they can't do is sort it out with Hamas.
That's right. Amen, Rod. Well said all around, my friend. Folks, follow him on X for great breakdowns like you just heard. Dr. Rod Martin, thanks so much, my friend. God bless you. We will see you again soon. Keep up the great work. And coming up after the break, my final thoughts. Look, we've got momentum right now in America. How do we keep it? What does the Bible say about that? I'll break it down next. Welcome back to Stakelbeck Tonight. Hey, some exciting things, needless to say, happening in America right now under the Trump administration. But folks, at the end of the day, I've said all along, there can be great political achievements, but this is a spiritual battle we are locked in right now. I talked before the break about momentum. I think of the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. Folks, that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, we can't make America great again unless God is back at the center of things. The good news is, I think we're getting there, so be encouraged. Hey, tomorrow night, a great Israel breakdown that you won't want to miss. Until then, God bless you, and we'll see you soon.